I wasn't aware that rabbits were capable of making any noise until I slit one's throat while it was nailed down in the physiology lab. I realized that the animal was technically dead, in that its brain had been mushed up by a probe and so could feel no pain. But I and my partner James Wellwood were a bit surprised when it raised its head from the block and squeaked. After a few puffs on our pipes, we plucked up courage and slit its chest open to find a rather disturbingly pulsating heart, which we courageously linked up to various pieces of apparatus. Could this be vivisection? Yes, we thought. But soon it all became fun. Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-vivisection, but I am anti-unnecessary vivisection. I've seen none of that in this country, the United Kingdom that is, but I did see rather a lot of rats slaughtered at a medical school in New York, where a newly qualified intern was fiddling around with rats' brains without any apparent explanation for his action. He said he thought it was something to do with the pineal gland. So, what's a rat? They do the same thing with human beings there, with volunteer prisoners, who, if they agree to have something alien inserted into their bodies, not just bits of plastic and metal, but untried drugs, get reduced sentences. In this country, on the whole, we use medical students as guinea pigs. I have never entered one of these contests, and I'm glad, because a friend of mine took part in a double-blind trial on a drug that brings down your blood pressure, only to find out a year later that it could cause permanent impotence. He was lucky to have been given the placebo. In my first year at Cambridge, I tried to join the Footlights Club, realizing that the only reason I'd gone there in the first place was that I'd seen Jonathan Miller performing in a television version of a Footlights annual review. As a fresher at the Society's fair, I went from stall to stall in my houndstooth check, pork pie hat and pipe. I didn't join KUKA, QSOC, or Evangelical Aeromodelling, but I did join the Medical Society, the Mountaineering Club, and other important political organisations. Eventually, I arrived at my destination, the Footlights stall, behind which was David Frost, a lone figure boiling underpants. He told me that nobody could join, since it was by invitation only. I questioned the point of the stall. None at all, really, said David Paradine Frost. We only have 25 undergraduate members per year, so push off. So, I hadn't been invited to join the Footlights, the only purpose of my university career. Neither had Tony Branch, who'd come to Cambridge to read law with the intention of switching to the light entertainment course after one term. We organised a smoking concert, or smoker, a kind of cabaret revue where people in dinner jackets and black ties sit around laughing at themselves. Satire. I'd invited the secretary of the Footlights, David Frost, the president of the Footlights, Peter Bellwood, Tim Brinton, a radio personality, Nio Marsh, the gardener, D.H. and Frida Lawrence, Lord David Cecil, Lord and Lady Clitt, the Earl of Penis, and Sir Roger Lupin. We gave them gallons of claret, and didn't start until they drunk at least a bottle each. The show, just as we thought, was successful, and we were both invited to go to a Footlights audition before the committee, in the hope that they would allow us to appear in one of their smokers, which was a sort of second audition, where you had to be awfully funny. I impersonated a carrot, and a man with iron fingertips being pulled off stage by an enormous magnet. In the same set of auditions, John Cleese did a routine of trampling on hamsters, and can still do a good pain-ridden squeak. We were both selected, and very soon we were able to wear black taffeta sashes with Ars est celere artem on them. The art is to conceal the art. And as members of the committee, we were able to prevent all sorts of talented people from joining the club. The Footlights Club at that stage had had members the week before like Jimmy Edwards, Julian Sallard, J. Miller, B. Gascoigne, the Goodles, Noel Coward, Irving Thrush, Cole Porter, honorary, Mr. and Mrs. Not Arthur Askey, Leslie Brickus, and Tarquin Thing, who wrote all the Beatles hits and posthumously curtsied at Muhammad Ali when he thought he wasn't looking. Oh, and also Peter Cook. Although by then Peter had gone down from Cambridge, even in those days he had an obsessive disregard for David Frost and came back to punish him by being funnier and more intelligent at the smoking concerts. I remember one particular sketch where Peter was talking as the keeper of the Holy Bee of Ephesus, where he explained to the pilgrims that the Holy Bee was kept in a matchbox, but that it could cure all ills if they placed 3 shekels through the lid. After they'd given the 3-shekel piece, and weren't cured of even one ill, he explained to them that they'd probably stunned the bee. Peter got rather angry with God during this routine, frequently cursing and pointing up to heaven because he had so many complaints from customers, and at one moment he went white, and left the stage clutching his chest. Either he had forgotten his lines, there was a God, or he'd overeaten. But the most important thing about the Footlights Club was that it thought itself a more elite group than even the Footlights Club. The Middlesex County Cricket Club had nothing on them. They wouldn't even allow His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales in to hoover the carpet. This taught all the members the kind of supreme arrogance that made Genghis Khan what he was yesterday. The Footlights' final examination took place over 2 weeks in June at the Arts Theatre, Cambridge, and if you earned a distinction, you would be offered postgraduate work at the Oxford Playhouse and the Travers, Edinburgh, pick up a PhD at the Lyric Theatre, Shaftesbury Avenue, followed by a lecture tour of New Zealand and culminating in a full doctorate on Broadway. Our exams were open to public scrutiny. They were rigorous and cruelly fair. If you got laughs, you passed. If not, you failed. Compared to these, the university exams were about as reliable a guide to a student's ability as the width of his mother's kneecaps, and I treated them with the nonchalance they deserved. Around me, others were going mad with the terror of failure. The strain was too much for one gentleman on my staircase, whom the head porter found throwing his own shit about the room. He made a hell of a mess of the place and was carried off screaming. I think he got an aigratat, which means that he got his degree, but didn't have to take the exams because of illness. 2 other aigratats were less genuine. One law student, who had done no work at all except on bottles of claret, hired a car and had himself driven out into the middle of the fens, where he was found a week later wandering around in the fields, claiming that he had amnesia. In case he's forgotten, his name is... well, I'm sure he hasn't. Another friend, who was reading Oriental Studies, had spent his 3 years at Cambridge flying aeroplanes. He faked appendicitis, and because his 2 main papers were several days apart, was brave, stupid, or afraid enough to be slit up and have a perfectly healthy organ removed. I left Cambridge with a BA in Natural Sciences, lower second class, several bottles of college sherry, and a PhD in claret.